So a bit about myself. So I'm Monica and I'm CEO and founder of a company called Xata. So the name coming from extended data, so it's like data but with X. Before that, I was in the monitoring space, in observability space, and I have started an open source project called Packetbit that was acquired by Elastic in 2015. So let's see what Xata is. So Xata is a fully managed Postgres platform and supports AWS Aurora and soon will also support AWS RDS. It's based on open source projects and here are a few icons of those and you can check our repository for more details on our open source project. So we've seen that when we started the company, we've seen that companies usually struggle to build applications just because lately applications are really complex and companies end up putting resources not only for building the application itself, but also building the database platform, basically gluing multiple data stores together just to offer basic functionality in their application. So here today we're gonna start building a Notion clone using Xata, and I want to show you with the pain points that developers need to face when building an application. So first in Notion, there is this concept of blocks, where I think most of you are already familiar with Notion, right? So you can have a block that is text type or page or to-do list or heading. And then all of these blocks basically create the content of the page. So each of these blocks is represented by an ID, properties, a list of properties, and also a type. And there is a really nice blog post that the Notion team wrote about if you are more curious about that. So let's have a look about how the data model is. So basically Notion, like I said, so you have the page that contains multiple blocks. You can also have files attached to a block, and also you can have comments from your team. And you have the team members, and you have to make sure that the right people are accessing the right data. So we have all this data model that we built, and now we have to decide where to store the data. And you need a relational database, and currently Postgres is the most desired choice, and it's growing in popularity actually in the last years. So we're choosing Postgres for that. So if we choose Xata, for example, as a relational database to store all this data, then we're going to have do this over the UI if you want to, and easily define each table or all the columns. So that's easy. It was the easy part. But now the complex part starts if we want to have, for example, search in our Notion clone. In my opinion, search is the most important feature that your application needs. I've seen so many websites that has basic search functionality, and it gets very frustrating for the users. So I think search is really key in order to build a really great product. So for example, Notion also has a search functionality, and here is a solution of it. So let's see what are the solutions that a developer can take in order to do our search. The first option is basically using the full text search that is built in Postgres, and basically offers you the building blocks that you can combine them in order to create a search engine. We have a really nice blog post written explain how you can do this. So it's a lot of work, and in the end you get a basic functionality of your search, and you can also you don't have a fuzzy search included. So with a better alternative, basically you can do this with adding another data store in your platform, and for example Elasticsearch. And we also have a blog post that here shows you the difference between how you can do this in Postgres versus Elasticsearch. But I think what people don't realize is that having another data store in your platform becomes really complicated, and it's actually more complicated than to think about. The fourth alternative is Algolia. So probably many of you know Algolia is a SaaS service that kind of is easy to use, and the disadvantage is that it's too expensive. So let's see in details about what it means to add Elasticsearch in your platform. So basically what you need to do is to synchronize your data from Postgres to Elasticsearch, and for that probably you need a tool or something like Debezium. I'm sure any Postgres user he knows about it. So it's a tool that basically synchronizes data from Postgres, and it uses Kafka in order to do this. And the disadvantage of this solution is that it only syncs the data, but not the schema. So basically, if you end up changing the schema of the database, then your replication basically is not accurate anymore. So we solved this problem in Xata, and of course we are not using Debezium. We have our own solution for that, where we can replicate not only the data but also the schema from Postgres to Elasticsearch. So basically, Elasticsearch offers full text search out of the box if you are using Xata. And basically, basically you can get the boosters, and you can also get the fuzziness that comes with a solution like Elasticsearch. So there is a really nice YouTube video kind of explaining you how to use the boosters and also the fuzziness. So because AI is in a hype, right? So one of the things that Notion has is SKI. So basically you can chat with your data and kind of hear what AI has to say about this. In Xata, we kind of offer an out-of-the-box experience, so you can basically chat with the data that you have in your database. For example, here we have the users table, and we can ask questions about a user. For example, what is the email of the user called Marvin? And then you get the answer. Another interesting use case for that is that you can put all your documentation in Xata, and you get out-of-the-box chat with your documentation, chat with your data, right? That you can offer a really nice experience for your users for your documentation. Also, the Notion offers files, so probably in our Notion clone also wants to support files. And you can have the files in a table, you can also have the files in a document, and basically in order to do that, there are a few ways. You can use Cloudflare, you can use Cloudinary, or you can store them in S3. And what you have to do is basically to make sure that in each block that you have in the page, you link to the right file that you have uploaded. And also have to make sure about that you are giving access to the right files of the right format. So this is kind of complicated, but with Xata, basically file is another data type. So the only thing that you have to do is drag and drop the file or the image to our UI. And for example, here is a table where you have kind of a collection of images of butterflies, and you see the image column. Probably it's too small to see it from far away, but the image column contains images of the butterfly. And of course, you can enlarge them to see like being a bigger. So yeah, now we build a Notion clone. So I think it wasn't so hard, especially if you use Xata. But now the next stage starts, right? When you have to manage, you have to add your new features in your application, and ideally without breaking compatibility, right, to what you have already. So in order to make it easier for people to add features, new features in your application, we introduced this term of database branching, where basically you can branch your database like you branch your code. And so the way it happens is that you create a branch, and you can change the schema of the branch, and optionally you can also copy some of the data to the new branch, and then you can basically launch it back into the main branch. So imagine that you want to add a new feature to your application. Then the first thing, you create a pull request in GitHub with the code for that application, and also with the schema changes for your database. And Xata is trying to make sure that the code changes are in sync with the database changes. And basically for that, there will be a branch in the database that is linked to your pull request. So you can also see the preview of the database, and if you use services like Vercel and Netlify, you can also get a link to your deployment database. And if you want to merge back, when you merge the pull request, what happens is that Xata is performing database migration in order to make sure that the changes that you did in the database are in sync with the ones that you made in the code. And things are easy when you have to do really little small changes to the database, but things are getting complicated when the schema changes are really complex. So how it happens in reality is that companies really have a list of what you are allowed as a developer to change in your schema when you create a new feature. For example, they kind of avoid changing the type of a column, but it's always allowed to add a new column. So imagine for every feature you add a new column, and you end up having a table of lots of columns. So we were trying to come up with a solution, and for that we created an open source project that is called pgrole that is doing zero downtime schema migrations. And basically we have a new approach, and how it's working is that it allows you to have the new schema and the old schema in the same time. And then you can choose if you want to merge it back with zero downtime migration, or if you want to roll back, and the rollback will be with constant. So imagine that now you have the Notion clone and it gets successful, and you have users all over the world, and now you get into scalability problems, or more precisely, let's say latency is starting to be a problem. So for example, you have your user in Sydney, and if you use, for example, Cloudflare workers, they will be also in Sydney. But the problem is that if the user is trying to access the data, then probably you have the data somewhere in East, US East 1, and then you have to basically go to the database in US East 1 to access any information about your blocks in Notion. And if you want, for example, if you have 5 round times to the database, this adds up and becomes basically more than a 1 second response time for your users. So how do we solve this problem? So in order to reduce the latency, we can try to geographically distribute the data tables, and we can do that by putting the data tables in regions that are closer to the user. So for example, if the user is in Sydney, the data tables will be positioned ideally also in Australia region, right? And we have written a really nice blog post that was going viral on Hacker News, and here is the link to it, so if you want to hear more details about this. So in order to solve this problem, we need to look into multi-tenancy, right? And in order to do that, let's go back and check the data model. And you have the workspace, and you have all these data tables inside the workspace, like blocks and the files that are attached to a block, like the pages, the comments, the members, and so on. Everything is super linked, but is inside the workspace. And what's interesting is that you cannot link to workspaces in Notion. So what it means is that a block in workspace 1 is not linked to any block in the workspace 2. So this allows us to really consider the workspace as a tenant. So you can basically split the data tables geographically based on the workspace. And for the rest of the data tables, like users, that tells about the workspaces, the members, and so on, they can be global because usually the user is not accessing so often that type of data. So in the end, basically, if we distribute the pages, tables, using the tenant and group by region, we'll get something like this. And basically, in our example, we're gonna have all the data tables that are for a workspace. We get for the user in Sydney, we're gonna get them in Australia, for example, or in Syria region. So in order to make this easier, we are working on a distributed Postgres solution that is coming soon in order to simplify this for the user and get an out-of-the-box experience. So you as a company, you as a developer, don't have to think about like scalability from day one or scalability when you reach the limitation of Postgres, and continue spending all your resources on building a great product that your users love. And in order to do that, we plan to use the PGTX. So this is a library that we created in an open source that allows you to build extensions for Postgres in Zig. And go and check it out if you're curious about. If you have any questions, we're gonna be here. And also we have the creator of PG Roy here with me. So if you have any questions, we'd love to stay in touch and also hear your thoughts.
Yes.
Thanks.